Hello everyone, I am AkarshJaiswal and I'm currently based in Lucknow working as management trainee in Bancassurance. The topic in which I'm going to speak is preference shares. So preference shares, these are those shares that are preferred over the equity shares in payment of surplus or dividend, thus making the preference shareholder the first one entitled to get dividend in a company. In preference shares, they are also given fixed dividends unlike the equity shares. But at the same time, when liquidation of the company takes place, they are not paid first, but after the creditors and the bondholders. But one cannot straight away buy preference shares. The preference shares are meant only for the promoters of the company, financial institutions, and the board of directors. Preference shares can be converted to common stock and can also be redeemed before the maturity at the discretion of the company. These shares cannot be traded, so they are not liquid. As dividend payout is fixed in the preference shares, if a company rolls out an extra dividend, then the preference shareholders are not eligible to receive that. Talking about the types of the preference shares, the first type is the callable share. So when an issuing company issues preference shares that they can buy back it at a fixed rate, these are called the callable shares. In these shares, the company that issues these shares are benefited more than the shareholders, as the company can limit its stock value. The second type is the convertible shares, where the preferred shares that can be exchanged with the equity shares. It means you can always exchange your preference shares to the equity shares. Here, the common shares offer higher value. So, if in case the common share offers a higher value than the preferred shares, then the investor can switch from the preferred shares to the common stock and make a profit. But after that, the company will no longer give the fixed dividend. Also, they cannot be converted back to the preferred shares. The third type of preferred shares are the cumulative shares, where the preference shares are issued with a clause that if the company is not making profits and is not able to pay dividends, then the unpaid dividend should be paid to the preference shareholders before any dividends to the equity shareholder. And the final type of the preferred shares are the participatory shares, where in participatory shares, additional dividend is paid to the preference shareholder if the company achieves certain profits set by it for a particular year. Here, shareholders are benefited more as it shares a part of the company profits. So, once a company issues a preference shares, they have to keep following rules in their mind while issuance. First is the authorization of by article of association. Second, members must approve the issue in a general meeting. The third, at the time of issuing fresh preference shares, there should not be any undue dividend payments to preference shares issued before. And final, a company can issue preference share for a maximum of 20 years of redeemable period. Now, so with all this, we can come to think that preference shares have the characteristics of both debentures and equity shares. It does not give complete voting rights to the shareholders. It generates higher income than equity. It has a predefined rate of dividends. It doesn't have a part in residual incomes. And these are some merits of the debentures. While dividends are paid off from profit after taxes, when preference dividends are due, it does give voting rights. Payment of dividend decisions are subjected to the management of the companies. These are some of the features of the equity shares. Some of the companies that issues preference shares that are listed in Bombay Stock Exchanges are Tata Consultancy Service, Adani Ports and SEZ, JSW Steel, United Breweries, Aditya Birla Novo Limited. So, in conclusion, I can say that preference shareholders are bound to receive dividends irrespective of the profit and loss of the company. That is the reason this makes the preference shares the most safest among every other investments. The first obligation of a company, even at the type of insolvency, is to pay the dividends to the preferred shareholders. Generally, dividend of preferred shares is fixed, where in case of equity shares, dividend depends on the policy and dividend decisions of the company. New investors who are looking for a regular return and less risk will always prefer the preference shares than the equity shares of a company. But just like a coin, it also has another side where preference shares doesn't attract big investors who are willing to take more risk, since preference shareholders offer fixed rate of return and there aren't many opportunities to make huge gains. Big investors doesn't prefer the preference shares. They are only preferred by the investors who want a regular and steady return. Invest in the preference shares. That was all from my side. Thank you.